Welcome to Reflect on This. Hello, I am Johnny Henshaw. Many years ago, I discovered that I could use my passion for research and analysis to also discover important truths from God's Word and then apply them to my life in tangible ways. So if you want to learn more about the ways and nature of God in practical ways that you can actually apply to your life, keep listening. And check out the show notes to find additional info and resources. So let's get started. Please join me today as we reflect on this. Recently, I have been reflecting upon this statement by Jesus from John 15:2. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it, so that it may bear more fruit. A few observations. Because Jesus says that these people are, quote, in me, then he is talking about fruitful and fruitless believers. In other words, branches are a word picture for followers of Jesus. Note how various Greek dictionaries define the Greek word ahiro, which is translated as takes away in today's verse. To raise, take up, or lift. New American Standard Exhaustive Concordance. To take up, lift, raise, bear, carry. Mount's Concise Greek-English Dictionary. To lift, by implication, to take up or away. Figuratively, to raise. Strong's Hebrew and Greek Dictionary. To raise up, elevate, lift up. Thayer's Greek definitions. All these dictionaries include the raise or lift definition as the first and primary meaning of this Greek word. They all include the take away or remove definition as the secondary or figurative meaning. Although many, but not all Bible translations use the secondary meaning to take away or remove in this verse, the secondary meaning does not make sense in this verse. Why would God remove or take away fruitless believers from His presence? The only way the secondary meaning makes any sense is if you assume that it is referring to self-proclaimed Christians who are not genuinely born again, that is, who are not bearing fruit. But that does not fit with Jesus' description of these people as being in me. Therefore, the best translation of this verse is to use the primary meaning. If we do that, then this verse shows that God treats both fruitful and fruitless believers in a loving and nurturing way. God takes up every fruitless believer, not removing them, but raising them. He lifts them up off the ground, supporting them to enhance their growth. Today's verse is taken from the conversation that Jesus had with His disciples on the evening before His trial and crucifixion. Jesus is lovingly emphasizing to them the endless love of God, even for those who fail and disappoint Him. God prunes fruitful believers to yield an even greater amount of fruit. We see Jesus demonstrating these two principles later in the narrative as Jesus lovingly restored Peter after Peter had denied Him. Peter's denial did not result in rejection from Jesus or removal from fellowship. Instead, Jesus lifted Peter up and restored him to get him back on track for continued spiritual growth. The result? Peter became one of the primary persons to spread the gospel message in the early life of the church. For example, at Pentecost, God chose Peter to give the evangelistic message of salvation in Jesus to the crowd, and about 3,000 people were saved. Jesus described Peter's central role in this way: "Upon this rock I will build my church." Matthew 16:18. Let me state again the principle. God takes up every fruitless believer, not removing them but raising them. He lifts them up off the ground, supporting them to enhance their growth. And God prunes fruitful believers to yield an even greater amount of fruit. What are some applications of this biblical truth? As we look for applications for a passage, it is helpful to ask ourselves, how does this change how I think, act, and live? With that in mind, here are a few applications that come to my mind. Even when I am fruitless and am not being salt and light to the world around me, God continues to love me. He does not cut me off, but instead lifts me up off the ground to enhance my growth and to point me heavenward toward God, the source of my strength. If I see other believers struggling, I should follow the example of Jesus, not rejecting them or removing myself from fellowship with them, but lovingly lifting them up and restoring them to fellowship. Also, I should be encouraged when I experience the pruning of the Father, because God only prunes those branches that are fruitful to yield a greater harvest, and that must mean that He sees some fruit in my life. Today, I encourage you to reflect on this. It is my hope that this episode will encourage and inspire you to not just know the Scriptures, but to apply the Scriptures to your daily life. And don't forget to check out the show notes for resources mentioned in today's episode.